Hello everyone, my name is Tyson, and welcome back to another episode of the Ruse News. Now, this is the third part of my coverage of TGS, so if you haven't seen the first two parts, I would recommend going back and watching those before you watch this one. Now, to discuss the final session, the Japanese voice actor panel. The video itself isn't translated, but I'll do my best based on not only the known phrases like
"kept you waiting, huh?"
but also this article written by DualShockers. This will be attempting to put this into my own words as much as possible with my commentary between sections, but being that I don't have any other sources for this panel in English and I haven't seen any other videos on YouTube putting this in English for viewers, this is going to be fairly close to what they already wrote. I'll include a link to the full article so you guys can read the article yourself. Please support them by at least opening the article. No need to make the preamble any longer. Let's roll into the intro.
First things first, you're going to want to obtain MS-DOS games.
Let's get to the real meat and potatoes of the One thing that I actually forgot to write into the script that I'm going to go ahead and mention impromptu here is that when Akio comes out on stage, he says his usual Solid Snake phrase, or even Big Boss phrase,
"Kept you waiting, huh?"
Pretty interesting that he is still using that all these years later, even though he is not working on Metal Gear Solid, quote unquote. In the beginning, they looked back on the game's recording. Apparently, after the 2018 E3 trailer, Kojima contacted each of the cast members to have them dub the TGS 2018 trailer. The full game didn't ensue until December of last year, until just last month. Normally, dubbing for the Japanese market, they would record their roles individually, and would be a lot faster than the 9 months it took.
9 months since I licked you clean and left with no complaints.
Kojima says that the reason Death Stranding took longer was because he tried to make everyone record together as much as possible. It's likely a coincidence, but it's interesting that it took them the amount of time it takes for a full-term pregnancy to record the Japanese dub. Next, they all explained how they got involved with Death Stranding. Akio Otsuka, the voice of Snake, didn't seem to say how he got involved, just that he thought it was fun to be working with Kojima yet again. I'm assuming the reason is because of their long working relationship. Kikuko Inoue, the voice of the boss, said that she was worried that she would not be contacted to be in Death Stranding, so she was also happy to be involved when he contacted her. Akihiko Ishizumi is new to working with Kojima, and jokingly said that he hopes that he'll give him roles every time now. Kojima added that he's heard Ishizumi in many movie dubs and always wanted him for one of his games. Satoshi, the voice of MGS-V's Ocelot, jokingly said he felt left out when E3's 2018 trailer released and Kojima still hadn't contacted him. He got really happy when he was contacted to record the TGS 2018 trailer, the first time we heard the game in Japanese. Kojima mentioned Mikami often voices good guys, so he wanted him to play a more villainous role for once. This is of course interesting because Ocelot is normally an antagonist, but was an ally in the Phantom Pain, at least supposedly. We know that he was working with Zero the whole time and brainwashed himself so that he wouldn't give it away that Venom is a brainwashed soldier until he found out naturally. Next, they shared some thoughts about their roles. Akio said that he is getting old now and needs to leave main roles to younger voice actors, so he was happy to voice Die Hardman, a supporting role. Kojima immediately interjected, saying that's not true at all and he'll always be the boss in his heart, which is why he was made Die Hardman in the first place. He is Sam's commanding officer. They also mentioned that Otsuka was a natural leader during the recording sessions and helped rally everyone together due to his long working relationship with Kojima. Kikuko apparently really likes Amelie because of how multi-faced and mysterious she is. That's interesting. Clearly there's more to her than meets the eye as of now. There's also the fact that on the beach, Amelie doesn't age, so it's a meta joke with her eternal 17 years old joke routine. Kojima also mentioned Amelie as a reference to Space Battleship Yamato 2199's Starsha, who was voiced by Kikuko. In a sense, Amelie is inviting Sam on a trip, just like Starsha invites humanity to travel to Iskandar to save Earth. Damn it, another anime I have to watch. Ah well, not like I hadn't planned on it anyway. A show about a spaceship based on a World War II battleship is definitely weird enough that I'm intrigued. Satoshi jokingly said that he doesn't get why Kojima didn't reveal Higgs' name back at TGS last year when he got revealed. Kojima and him said it's hard to talk about Higgs because anything they say will turn into spoilers, but they add that he's not much of a villain. This, along with what Kikuko said about Amelie being multi-faced, will likely play into the dark turn that Bridges took in the briefing trailer, forcing America's ideologies on those who don't want them. Akihiko said that he's the only one not voicing a quote cool character. At the same time, that was fine by him because he didn't have to try and make a cool voice. Kojima mentioned that Deadman might not look cool, but he's one of the first characters in the game, so he's pretty sure Deadman will be popular. Good information to know that we'll come across him very early on, likely earlier than Amelie or Die Hardman. They still can't explain why he's named as such to avoid spoilers along with Die Hardman. Supposedly, this will be revealed at the end of the game, but given he said the same thing about the Phantom Pain and many were left with unanswered questions, I have a feeling it will also be obscure in some way. Despite that sentiment, Kojima and the cast feel that the ending will move the audience, and that, quote, it's something you can only do with games. Akihiko was also asked how it felt being the new member in an established group. He said everything went very well, and he also started watching the movies Kojima talks about on Twitter. I have to wonder if this is a planted answer to suggest to the audience that the movies aren't just him sharing his tastes, but that many of them are clues. Next, they played video messages from the actors who couldn't make it to the panel. The first one is Sam's voice actor, Kenjiro Suda. He says that Sam is a really charming character and how Norman did an awesome job. Sam interacts with many different people, depicting a nice story. When asked how to describe Death Stranding in a single sentence, Suda said it's pretty much impossible, but he'd probably go with a story that connects people. Suda said, Death Stranding is Kojima's gift to everyone around the world who was waiting for a new game from him. It represents the links between everyone, the old and new generations, for instance, the strands dripping from the Death Stranding logo. Suda ended saying he hopes we'll all get to travel together and make some memories with Death Stranding. Commenting on the video message, Kojima said Kenjiro did an amazing job with the dub, even down to Sam's screams and groans. Having heard it extensively during this TGS, I can concur that his voice is spot on to Norman's. They spent tons of time together during the recording, and it was always a pleasure. Kojima also mentioned how Suda would often ask to redo a scene, even when Kojima said that it was perfect. Kikuko was the same way. The two of them would redo their lines over and over, improving them every time. She mentioned that Kenjiro was really into the recording, and whenever she heard him say Amelie, it was so powerful, she always felt like she can do an even better job. She wouldn't stop until she felt like she properly portrayed the, quote, real Amelie that Suda was talking with. Norman Reedus is extremely popular worldwide, so Kojima had a hard time choosing who to portray him in Japanese. He hesitated, rewatching a lot of Japanese dubs of movies. He made his choice when rewatching Lethal Weapon and being awed by Kenjiro's performance. He immediately followed Suda on Twitter. He followed Kojima back, and then Kojima offered him to voice Sam via a direct message. At first they just kept chatting about movies as they're both movie otaku. They also mentioned how they organized birthday parties for each of the actors whose birthdays were during the recording, from December of last year till August of this year. Akihiko jokingly said that the recording ended right before they got to do his birthday though, so Kojima told him they'll definitely celebrate it all together next month on October 25th. The next video clip was from Kazuhiro Yamaji, the Japanese voice of Cliff, and Hochu Otsuka, the voice of Hartman. Hochu mentioned how Hartman is a great character, and that he was really happy to voice him. He was then joined in the video by Yamaji. They've been friends for a long time, and consider each other as brothers. They mentioned how old they both are, and that Death Stranding might have been the last time they got a chance to work together on a project, so they're both very grateful to Kojima for this opportunity. They also mentioned that Kojima was a great mood maker during the recording sessions. However, Yamaji said that at some point, Kojima was completely exhausted. This is likely around the point he started posting tweets with such sentiments, around June-July of this year. Akio mentioned that Hochu and Kazuhiro are the same age of 65 years old, hence why they've always been friends. Kojima and Hochu often voiced characters who end up dying, so whether Hartman dies or not is one of the things you should look forward to. I have to say, this is pretty funny considering the fact that technically, Hartman dies every 21 minutes for 3 minutes at a time, which means that he dies 60 times a day. I assume this is more implying whether he dies permanently or not, but I thought that I'd throw that in there with Kojima's other tricky plays on words. Kojima also mentioned that Hochu is one of the actors who are extremely talented at fast speech, something he made Hartman do. Kazuhiro was picked because he really feels like Mads in Japanese. Kojima said it was to the point where some of the game's staff initially thought that Kojima was actually recording Mads speaking in Japanese. Kojima couldn't say anything about Cliff because everything is spoilers, but ended up saying there's something huge that happens with him at the end. He added that you'll definitely become a fan of Mads Mikkelsen if you weren't already. As for Yamaji's comments about Kojima being tired, Kojima answered that he's feeling better now. While he's still working on the game, and you might think he'll exhaust himself working as there's only 2 months left until the release, he said he'll be fine and that, quote, the game will be over before release. Holy shit, does that mean we're gonna get a reveal before the release? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! Oh shit. Dude, if this is gonna be the case, I'm gonna be so stoked. I'm genuinely curious how many people will be pissed off if Death Stranding does end up being connected to both Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid. As I've mentioned, licensing out a franchise isn't unheard of, as we've seen even recently with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Only a month and a half left, guys. Shit's getting intense. Next, Kikuko reads a letter from Maya Sakamoto, the Japanese voice of Mama. In the message, she says that she's never really played games, so she actually didn't know about Kojima before. So the first time she went to the recording, they pretty much talked about games and Death Stranding all day long. Sakamoto mentioned that February of this year, when Kojima publicly announced she's in the game, everyone she knows praised her about it. Be it her friends, old classmates, or her voice acting colleagues, they all contacted her to congratulate her and say, wow, you're in a Kojima game? That's awesome. This is when she realized how popular Kojima's games are, and how much they're loved around the world. She added that Mama was fun, and how she's a deep and great character, who can't really be easily described. Maya ended her message saying that Death Stranding will be the first game she'll play in a very long time, and that even if you're not into games, you'll definitely enjoy it. Akio Otsuka was taking glances at the letter while Kikuko was reading it. He funnily pointed out how for some reason, Shurokuchu, during the recording, was written with hiragana instead of kanji. Kojima said that while Maya Sakamoto didn't know much about him, he did know her since she's a veteran voice actor who appeared in tons of anime, and she dubbed Natalie Portman in her movie's Japanese dubs. He added that she was awesome during Death Stranding's recording and would pretty much nail all of her lines on the first try, to the point that Kojima felt it wasn't very professional of him to end up okaying all of her lines right away all the time. The final video message was from Nana Mizuki, the voice of Fragile. She apologized about how she couldn't attend and joked on how she could literally appear on stage. She was right beside Makuhari Messe, the convention center where Tokyo Game Show takes place. She mentioned that Fragile is a really good character and multi-faced, so voicing her was quite complicated. At the time, it was a particularly nice experience because she didn't do that type of character much in the past. When asked to describe Death Stranding in a single sentence, Mizuki said it's impossible. Her best explanation would be that Death Stranding realistically reflects human society. She said it's a dramatic story with a lot of baggage behind it. It could also be compared to a tree which grows branches, and then grows leaves, and then fruit, and then gives birth to life again. She ended up saying Death Stranding is a reflection of human society, and it made me think about myself in my own way of doing things. I feel like challenging myself again now. Commenting on the video message, Kojima said Fragile has a very great story, and that her name is a hint about how she's, quote, broken, and how despite that, she's an extremely strong character. Nana was the best choice to portray such a strong character. He often goes to her concerts and is always amazed at how she seems like a really delicate person, and yet is ultra powerful. He added that her previous character, Paz, had shocking developments, and this time as well, something surprising will happen. If she's connected to Paz, I'll be surprised. I'm just curious if the connections we made have any merit whatsoever. Kikuko was then asked to comment on Death Stranding's female characters, and how the recordings went. She said that sadly, their schedules never matched up, so she didn't get to record with Maya-chan once. But she was always impressed with her acting when listening to it later on. Kojima and everyone else added similar comments. As for Nana-chan, Kikuko said that they record together all at the same time. They're friends with each other too, so they were always hyped meeting each other at the recording studio. However, she's mentioned that there's a certain scene in Death Stranding where their characters are kinda at odds. That scene took them a while to do, probably because they're usually so friendly with each other. Kojima and Kikuko added that in said scene, there's essentially a love triangle-like relationship between Amelie and Fragile. Oh shit, this kinda confirms what I've been thinking all along with Lex regarding multiple wives. Lastly, Kojima mentioned how there's a certain voice actor he often worked with in the past. Sadly, none of the characters in Death Stranding fit him, so initially he gave up on him appearing in the game. However, after he started including cameos, Kojima realized that he could make him appear that way as well, in one of the side stories. Following that, they revealed that Tomokazu Sugito, the voice of Kaz in Peace Walker, Ground Zeroes, The Phantom Pain, is in Death Stranding's Japanese cast, with a short voiced message here.
いいですね。
あ、はい。
いいですか。
どうしよう。
遅かったじゃないか。
来てますよ。
考えてることはわかるよ。それはラックがかず、それともあえて浮かれてるのか？両方だよ。
俺こんなセリフ入れてない。カズ
モザイク初。モザイクが
モザイク。これモザイク何の絵かまだ見ません。はい。
ああモザイクかかってますね。
先ほどは。
This caused some controversy as he added a mosaic effect on the screen for this part, and a lot of people compared the overall look to a quote codec screen. I can see where they're coming from, but I suppose we'll have to wait and see. Akio himself thought it was pretty weird at first, since he didn't remember recording these lines. Kojima mentioned that the character voiced by Sugita is someone who regularly imitates Akio's voice in the game. Kojima also kept Sugita's inclusion in the cast a secret to Akio and the rest of the cast, making him record separately. One has to wonder, why would he do this if there wasn't any Metal Gear connection? For drama? No, I think there's definitely something more to this, you guys. Kojima doesn't fuck around, and this is definitely something fishy. As the voice actor panel reaches its conclusion, Kojima and the actors shared a few last words about Death Stranding. Akio mentioned how some might say conflict is part of humanity's nature. Nowadays, however, We live in civilized societies, so you can't just go out and hit anyone, and everyone needs to get along. Death Stranding might be a pioneer in how it tries to explain that through a game. Kikuko said that Death Stranding's story is particularly deep. The cast and herself were moved many times during the recording. Thanks to the very easy mode, even people who aren't into games can finish the game and enjoy the story. She wishes to share the story and what moved her about it with as many people as possible. Satoshi mentioned that there's a scene where his character goes, "I finally understand the truth of the Death Stranding." He jokingly said that he himself didn't figure out anything at all. He hopes a lot of people will play the game and understand. Akihiko started by saying he doesn't play games, and got funnily interrupted by Akio saying, "Can't believe there are still people like that nowadays." He says Death Stranding will be the first game he'll ever play. Very easy mode, made for people who've never even held a controller, is an idea Kojima got after he talked with him about it. Akio added that it'd be nice if you could play Death Stranding together with your family because it will make people in your family who don't play games interested in them, and make them realize that games are good. Kikuko added that Death Stranding is also a game which makes you realize you're not alone. This is in stark contrast with all of what Kojim Jam said about how Death Stranding is a game that will make you feel alone while playing it, and that it's very lonely here, etc. There are many people in the world who feel lonely, or that they're carrying a heavy burden alone, and Death Stranding can make you realize that you can connect with others or that there are others already with you. Kojima also added that he himself felt alone many times throughout his life, and you shouldn't give up at those times. Keep hoping for the future. Kojima ended the show with this message. You know, human connection has changed as technology evolved. In the past, we only had letters. Then we had phones, radios, and TVs. And now, on the net, we can communicate in real time with anyone anywhere. The world is directly connected. At the same time, with everyone hidden behind their keyboards, this made it much easier for negativity to spread. With Death Stranding's game system, I wish to indirectly connect the world. That way people will start thinking about each other's feelings again. I hope people who experience Death Stranding will try to understand more about others and the society we live in, ultimately making the world a better place. Before I go, I'd like to elaborate on this message with another thing Kojima has said. This, however, is from a Game Informer interview pointed out to me by a fan on Facebook, Zeroless0. It's a letter theory. It wasn't real time before in the past. For instance, a husband writes a letter from the battlefield a long time ago. I don't know when I'm going to die. And he sends it, and it takes a couple of months before it arrives, and the wife receives it and reads it. There's a time when she thinks he might be dead. The wife has to imagine what he was thinking at that time, when he was writing it. And this was the communication then. Right now, it's more real time. This is about caring for people. It's not direct. I wanted to do that with the internet we have today. If someone puts a cup there in Death Stranding, you might think to yourself, did that person deliberately put it there? Did he just have to throw it away for the load? But you think about it. It's like the letter theory. In this direct communication era, I wanted to create an indirect communication using the technology of today, so you feel for others more. Like you used to, back then, the 20th century, 19th century style, when people had to think about others in communication. But nowadays, people forget it because we're so direct. I can FaceTime you anytime. So right now, if I see your cup and I can phone you and say, hey, what's this cup for? But in Death Stranding, you can't. You have to think about it. Now, when you place a cup after that experience, you have to think about, what would people think if I put it here? So I believe that this way, people's feelings towards each other will deepen in Death Stranding because of how it's connected. That's it for this video, everybody. Thank you for watching all the way to this point. If you'd like to watch the original broadcast directly, you can watch it here. Check the description for a link to the DualShockers article, translating the final panel for you, as I mentioned before starting this final segment. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and comment on your thoughts about the Tokyo Game Show down below. I did my absolute best to cover this with the most accuracy I could. If there are any major discrepancies, please comment with them down below regarding accuracy to translations. I relied on others for translations, so I'm not at fault if those translations aren't on point. I made a whole series about Kojima and Death Stranding if you're curious and haven't seen it, so click the playlist on screen if you're curious about Kojima's deception. There's also more Ruse News episodes if you'd like to check those out. After Death Stranding comes out, I'll be doing a 24-hour live stream, so subscribe for that. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. This is RetroHellspawn, signing out. Have a good one.